It began without thunder. No explosion. No warning. Just a sudden wrongness in the sky above the land of fire, like the world inhaled and forgot how to breathe. High above the forest canopy, the air twisted. Not with chakra, not with nature energy, but with something older, heavier, invisible to almost everyone, yet impossible to ignore. Naruto Uzumaki stopped mid-step. The breeze felt off. His skin prickled, like standing too close to a storm that hadn't arrived yet. Somewhere deep inside, Kurama stirred, not in rage, but in confusion. That's not chakra, the Nine Tails growled, and it's not nothing. Miles away, Sasuke Uchiha paused during training. His Sharingan snapped open on instinct, scanning the horizon. He saw no enemy, no distortion, and yet his instincts screamed that something had just crossed a line that should never be crossed. In the hidden corners of the village, sensory ninjas stiffened all at once. They reached outward with their perception and recoiled. There was a presence, alive, but not alive the way they understood. And then something fell. Ichigo Kurosaki didn't crash into the forest. He passed through it. For a fraction of a second, the trees, the ground, even gravity itself felt unreal, like scenery painted over something deeper. His body tumbled through layers of resistance that weren't air, weren't spirit, and weren't space as he knew it. His senses screamed as his reiatsu flared on instinct, trying to stabilize him. Then, impact. Ichigo slammed into solid earth, skidding through dirt and leaves before rolling to a stop. He lay there for a moment, chest heaving, fingers clenched around the hilt of Zangetsu. Silence. No hollow screams, no spiritual echoes, no familiar pressure of nearby souls. Ichigo pushed himself up slowly, eyes scanning the forest. The trees were real, the ground was real, but the world felt muted, like someone had turned down the volume on existence itself. What the hell? He muttered. He reached out with his senses. Normally, souls glowed to him. Faint lights, distinct presences, the quiet hum of life and death overlapping. Here, nothing. Not empty, just unreadable. Ichigo frowned. I know you're here, he said under his breath, reiatsu flaring slightly. The result was immediate. Birds scattered in panic. Leaves trembled. The forest groaned as if pressed down by invisible weight. Miles away, Naruto staggered, nearly dropping to one knee. That, he sucked in a sharp breath. That's alive. But he couldn't see it, couldn't track it. It felt like a shadow cast without a body. Ichigo felt it too. Resistance. The air pushed back. Not spiritually, structurally. He swung Zangetsu experimentally, slicing through the space in front of him. The blade cut clean, but the wake of the swing behaved strangely. No spiritual ripple, no soul pressure shockwave, just displaced air and shaking branches. His eyes narrowed. This world, Ichigo said quietly, doesn't run on souls. That realization hit harder than the fall. Back home, everything, life, death, combat, was layered in spirit. Here, power flowed through bodies, not beyond them. Whatever this chakra was, it obeyed rules that didn't care about the afterlife. For the first time in a long while, Ichigo felt something uncomfortably close to isolation. He took a step forward and froze. Footsteps. Not spiritual. Physical, fast, disciplined. Ichigo suppressed his reiatsu instantly, years of instinct kicking in. The forest relaxed, and yet the tension didn't fade. Hidden in the trees, unseen eyes narrowed. ANBU operatives moved through the branches like ghosts, ironically closer to his old world than anyone here realized. Their masks turned, searching for an enemy they could feel, but not see. One of them whispered, "It stopped, but it's still there." Ichigo stood perfectly still, realizing something chilling. They weren't sensing him the way he sensed souls. They were sensing damage to the world itself, a distortion, a foreign pressure, a threat. Far away, Naruto clenched his fists. Whoever that is, they're scared too. Sasuke's voice was colder. Or they're hiding. Ichigo exhaled slowly, eyes hardening. A world that couldn't see him. A power system that didn't recognize souls. And warriors already hunting what they didn't understand. For the first time since becoming a substitute Soul Reaper, Ichigo Kurosaki wasn't sure his blade belonged anywhere. And somewhere above the forest, unseen currents shifted. As if the world itself was deciding whether to reject him or break trying to contain him. The forest didn't return to normal after the pressure faded. It pretended to. Leaves settled. Birds returned cautiously. The land of fire resumed its rhythm. But beneath it, something stayed misaligned, like a scar beneath skin. Ichigo felt it immediately. He moved carefully now. Reiatsu pulled so tightly inward it felt like holding his breath. Every step reminded him that this world pushed back differently. Chakra didn't flow around him. It resisted him, like a foreign substance refusing to mix. That resistance was why he didn't notice her at first. High above, perched on a thick branch, Hinata Hyuga activated her Byakugan. The world snapped open into layers of chakra pathways, pressure points, flowing networks of life. She scanned automatically. Trees, animals, distant shinobi. Then she froze. "There's something there," she whispered. Not a person, not empty space. A shape. Her vision slid across the forest floor and caught on a distortion. An outline that bent chakra flow inward instead of emitting it. No tenketsu, no coils, no chakra signature at all. But the space around it trembled, like it was standing too close to something heavy. Hinata's breath caught. That's not a genjutsu. Ichigo stopped mid-step. His instincts screamed, not danger, not killing intent, but awareness. Someone was looking at him, not sensing his reiatsu, not detecting spiritual pressure, seeing around it. Slowly, carefully, Ichigo turned his head. Their eyes met. For a fraction of a second, neither moved. Hinata saw a teenage boy with orange hair, dressed strangely, holding a blade that radiated a pressure she couldn't categorize. Ichigo saw a kunoichi with pale eyes widened in shock. Not fear, not aggression. Recognition. Hinata gasped softly and instinctively flinched back. The moment broke. Ichigo vanished. Not a flash step, not fully. He simply shifted, suppressing himself further, letting the chakra-heavy air swallow his presence. Hinata stumbled as her Byakugan lost the distortion, her heart racing. "He disappeared," she murmured, but he was real. Below, Ichigo crouched behind a ridge of roots, pulse steady but mind racing. So chakra eyes can see the gap, he realized. Not me. What I do to the world. That was dangerous. Voices drifted through the trees. Tsunade-sama wants confirmation. ANBU felt it again last night. They're calling it a curse now. A wandering one. Ichigo leaned closer, listening. Two jonin spoke in hushed tones, unaware they were being observed by something that wasn't supposed to exist. No chakra signature, no village markings, one said. Whatever it is, it's not bound by our rules. That makes it worse, the other replied. Unaligned power always does. Ichigo frowned. Village? More voices joined. Political tension wrapped in casual conversation. The Sand will hear about this soon. And the Cloud won't like it. They never do when a new weapon appears. Weapon? The word landed heavy. Ichigo's jaw tightened as realization set in. Not slowly, but all at once. This world didn't just fight. It organized war, structured it, bred it. Villages weren't communities. They were arsenals with borders. Back home, battles were personal, desperate, ugly. But they were about protecting people from hollows, from imbalance. Here, imbalance was policy. Ichigo pulled back deeper into the forest, thoughts sharp and uneasy. If this world detected power, it classified it. If it couldn't classify it, it eliminated it, or claimed it. Above him, Hinata watched the space where he had vanished. Her Byakugan saw nothing now, but her instincts refused to let go. He wasn't hostile, she thought. He was confused. That disturbed her more than any enemy ever had. She lowered her vision slowly, heart still racing. If Chakra can't see him, she whispered, then what will? Far from the forest, in a place where pain and perception blurred into godhood, a ripple passed through invisible waters. A man with ringed eyes paused. For the first time in a very long while, something had entered the world that did not belong to the cycle. And it was only a matter of time before someone who truly saw everything turned their gaze toward the ghost, walking through a land of war. Night fell over the land of fire, but the forest did not sleep. Branches creaked with controlled movement. Leaves shifted in patterns, too deliberate to be wind. Shadows detached from shadows, crossing treetops without sound. ANBU had been deployed. Ichigo felt them before he saw them, not through reiatsu, but through absence. The forest around them went quiet in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with training. Hunters. He pressed himself against the trunk of an ancient tree, breathing slow, reiatsu drawn so deep inside that his chest ached from the effort. Suppressing his spiritual pressure, this completely felt wrong, like locking his heart in a box and throwing away the key. Back home, power was instinct, reflex, protection. Here, power was a beacon. Don't flare, don't react, he told himself. Just disappear. A kunai embedded itself in the bark, inches from his face, not thrown at him. Thrown through where he had been a moment earlier. Ichigo's muscles tensed. Every instinct screamed to move, to strike, to end the threat before it multiplied. His grip tightened around Zangetsu. And then he stopped. They didn't see him. They were testing space, mapping distortion, measuring the scar he left on the world simply by existing. Ichigo forced his hand to relax. If I fight, he realized, I prove them right. Above him, an ANBU operative landed silently on a branch, mask angled downward. Area pressure spike faded, the voice whispered, but it's still wrong. Genjutsu? Another asked. No, Genjutsu leaves chakra residue. This doesn't leave anything. A pause. Then, colder. Then it's not a person. Ichigo's jaw clenched. That's how it starts, he thought. You stop being human the moment they can't explain you. He shifted carefully, placing each footstep with deliberate restraint. Every movement felt heavier than it should. Chakra-saturated air resisting him like deep water. He'd fought captains, espada, even gods. But this was different. This was restraint as survival. A sudden cry cut through the forest. Too close. A young shinobi, barely a teenager, had slipped, crashing through branches and landing hard near the search perimeter. His chakra flared in panic, uncontrolled. ANBU reacted instantly. Hostile. No, just an idiot. Ichigo saw it clearly now. The boy was hurt, an ankle twisted wrong, chakra misfiring. He struggled to stand, fear rising fast. And the ANBU? They didn't move to help. They moved to secure. Protocol first. Humanity later. Ichigo took a step forward, then another. Don't, he warned himself. They'll sense you. The boy cried out again, pain sharp and raw. A kunai slipped from his hand as he fell back. That did it. Ichigo clenched his teeth and moved. He didn't flash step, didn't swing his blade. He simply was there, catching the boy before he hit the ground, steadying him with one arm while carefully, deliberately keeping his reiatsu buried. The boy stared up at him, eyes wide. I can't, he began. Ichigo met his gaze and shook his head once. Calm, firm. Don't scream, he whispered. You'll be okay. For a heartbeat, the world froze. Then Chakra surged. Contact! An ANBU shouted. Distortion confirmed. Right there. Ichigo released the boy gently, pushing him back toward the tree line. Run, he said quietly. The kid didn't hesitate. Kunai flew. Ichigo twisted aside, blades slicing air where his head had been a moment earlier. He could have countered, could have disarmed them all in seconds. He didn't. Instead, he leapt backward into the canopy, reiatsu suppressed to the brink of pain, forcing his body to obey physics that hated him. Shurikens sliced through after images. Smoke bombs bloomed. Corner it. Don't let it surface. That word burned worse than any wound. Ichigo fled, not in fear, but in grim understanding. This world didn't hesitate. It didn't investigate. It didn't negotiate with anomalies. It hunted them. Hours later, deep in the forest, Ichigo finally stopped. He leaned against stone, chest heaving, Sengetsu resting point down in the soil. He looked at his reflection in the blade, at the faint outline of his hollow mask beneath the surface. Back home, he was a protector. Here, he was a variable, a risk to be erased. Ichigo closed his eyes slowly. So that's how it is, he murmured. And somewhere above the land of fire, the net tightened, as orders escalated from observe to eliminate, and the world prepared to answer the unknown with blood. The attack came without warning, not from the shadows, not from protocol, from intent. Ichigo felt it an instant before it happened, a spike of killing will, sharp and focused, tearing through the forest like a blade drawn too fast. This wasn't ANBU restraint. This wasn't containment. This was someone deciding the unknown needed to die. A child's scream cut through the trees. Ichigo turned and saw a young civilian boy frozen at the edge of a clearing, eyes locked on a figure descending from above. The shinobi moved with the confidence of experience, chakra roaring openly now, hands already forming the final seal. Lightning gathered. Die! The Jonin snarled, driving his attack downward. Ichigo didn't think. Zangetsu was in his hands before the thought finished forming. Steel met chakra in a collision that cracked the air. The lightning technique shattered, splintering into sparks that scorched the ground as Ichigo slid backward, boots carving twin lines through the dirt. The impact jarred his arms all the way to the shoulder. Silence followed. Then, shock. The Jonin skidded back, eyes wide beneath his headband. I hit something, he whispered. The boy stared in disbelief. Between him and death stood a blade, long, black, impossibly solid, held by hands that should not exist. Ichigo straightened slowly, reiatsu no longer fully suppressed. Not unleashed, just present, enough to anchor his blade in this world. For the first time, he was visible. The Jonin's shock twisted instantly into fury. So you finally show yourself, he growled. Monster. Ichigo didn't respond. His eyes flicked to the child. Get out of here, he said calmly. The boy didn't need to be told twice. As soon as the footsteps vanished, the Jonin's chakra flared violently, lightning crawling across his arms. You think blocking one attack makes you untouchable? He snarled. You don't even use chakra. Ichigo exhaled slowly. No, he replied, but I don't need to. The Jonin vanished in a burst of speed. Ichigo barely had time to react. The shinobi reappeared behind him, kunai aimed for the spine, only for Zangetsu to snap up at the last second, metal ringing as the blade intercepted the strike. The force drove Ichigo forward a step, boots digging into the earth. Fast, Ichigo thought. Not captain level, but clean. He pivoted, swinging wide. The Jonin ducked under the arc and countered with a chakra-enhanced kick that slammed into Ichigo's ribs. Pain exploded through his side. Ichigo grunted and slid back, skidding across the clearing before regaining his footing. So that's it, he realized. Chakra reinforces the body itself. This wasn't raw power. It was efficiency. Every strike carried intent, reinforcement technique. The Jonin didn't give him time to breathe. Hand signs blurred. Fire style. Ichigo slashed. The crescent of compressed air tore through the forming jutsu, dispersing flames before they could bloom. But the effort cost him. The resistance in the air dragged against the swing, slower than it should have been. The Jonin noticed. You're strong, he admitted, circling. But this world pushes back against you. Ichigo said nothing. He felt it too. Every movement here demanded more. Reiatsu didn't flow naturally. It had to force its place. And the longer the fight went on, the heavier his body felt. The Jonin lunged again, lightning blades screaming. Ichigo met him head-on. Steel and chakra clashed again and again, sparks carving scars into the clearing. Ichigo's instincts carried him through, parrying and countering with precision, honed through countless battles. But this opponent adapted. The Jonin shifted tactics, feints, misdirection, terrain control. A wire snapped tight around Ichigo's ankle. Explosive tags detonated midair, throwing him back in a cloud of smoke and dirt. Ichigo rolled to his feet, coughing, eyes sharp. I can't just overpower him, he realized. Not like this. The Jonin emerged from the smoke, breathing hard, but smiling. Good, he said. You bleed. Ichigo wiped blood from his lip, gaze steady. So do you. They stared each other down, warrior to warrior. This wasn't about fear anymore. It was about proof. Proof that Ichigo Kurosaki could stand in a world built on chakra. And proof, to everyone watching from the shadows, that he wasn't invincible. Somewhere beyond the trees, unseen eyes narrowed. The blade had revealed itself. Now the question was no longer what Ichigo was, but how long this world would allow him to exist before sending something far worse than a rogue Jonin to test him. Naruto Uzumaki arrived like a gust of misplaced sunlight. He didn't sense the battle so much as trip over it, leaping through the trees at full speed before skidding to a halt at the edge of the clearing, eyes widening at the scene in front of him. Steel rang against lightning. A black blade carved sparks out of the air as it intercepted a chakra-forged strike, the impact loud enough to echo through the forest. The ground was scarred, trees split, dirt scorched by jutsu residue. And at the center of it, a boy his age. Orange hair, strange clothes, no headband. Naruto blinked. Huh? Ichigo and the Jonin separated in the same instant, both sensing the new arrival. The Jonin swore under his breath. Back up, he muttered. Ichigo's eyes flicked to Naruto, sharp, assessing, wary. Another one, he thought. And this one's loud. Naruto stepped forward without hesitation, staring openly at Ichigo, and then at the Jonin. Hey, he shouted. What's going on here? The Jonin bristled. This doesn't concern you, Uzumaki. Fall back. Naruto frowned. Doesn't look like training. Ichigo shifted his stance subtly, placing himself, almost unconsciously, between Naruto and the Jonin. Zangetsu rested at his side, blade angled downward but ready. Naruto noticed. Something about the move felt protective. His curiosity ignited instantly. Whoa, Naruto said, eyes lighting up. That sword, how are you doing that? I don't see any hand signs, or chakra flow. Ichigo didn't answer. The Jonin attacked again, clearly intending to end this before it escalated. Lightning surged. Ichigo reacted on instinct, meeting the strike head-on. The clash sent a shockwave rippling outward, forcing Naruto to throw up his arms as dust and leaves blasted past him. Naruto stared. The guy wasn't using ninjutsu, wasn't reinforcing his blade with chakra, wasn't even flinching from techniques that would have torn through most chunin. He's fighting raw, Naruto muttered. Just strength and timing. Behind Naruto, a calm voice spoke. Not quite. Kakashi Hatake stood on a branch, sharing and exposed, gaze fixed entirely on Ichigo. He's using something, Kakashi continued, but it's not chakra, and it's not genjutsu. His visible eye narrowed slightly. It's closer to pressure, like the air itself is being weighed down around him. The Jonin leapt back, breathing hard now. His confidence had cracked. This thing isn't human, he snapped. You felt it too, Hatake. Kakashi didn't respond. He was still watching Ichigo. Every movement, every adjustment, every subtle hesitation. Ichigo felt that gaze immediately. This one's different, he realized. He sees more than the rest. Naruto, oblivious to the danger of the moment, stepped closer. Hey, he called out to Ichigo. You okay? That guy looks like a jerk. Ichigo's eyes flicked back to Naruto, confusion crossing his face. This kid didn't feel hostile. Too open. Too loud. Too honest. Stay back, Ichigo said, voice firm, but not unkind. Naruto grinned. You're strong, I can tell. That earned him a sharp look from Kakashi. Don't be careless, Kakashi warned. We don't know what he is. Ichigo bristled slightly at that, but before he could respond, Naruto asked the question that changed everything. So, Naruto said casually, tilting his head, what village are you from? The clearing went silent. Ichigo stared at him. Village? The word echoed unpleasantly in his mind. Soul Society. Karakura Town. Huiko Mundo. But village. I'm not, Ichigo said slowly. Kakashi stiffened. Naruto blinked. Not from a village. No, Ichigo replied. I don't belong to any of yours. The Jonin's expression hardened instantly. I knew it. Kakashi didn't move, but his posture shifted, subtle and dangerous. Then what are you? He asked. Ichigo hesitated. For the first time since arriving in this world, there was no immediate threat forcing action. No blade descending. No jutsu flying. Just eyes. Judgment. Expectation. I'm someone who protects people, Ichigo said finally. That's all you need to know. Naruto smiled at that. But Kakashi didn't. Because in a world divided by villages, allegiance mattered more than intent. And as the wind stirred the clearing once more, Kakashi realized something unsettling. This stranger wasn't aligned. And in the shinobi world, that made him more dangerous than any enemy with the banner. The room felt smaller than it should have. Ichigo stood at the center of it, hands relaxed at his sides, Zangetsu sealed and resting against the wall behind him. Wooden floors, paper walls reinforced with chakra, the faint scent of ink and tension. The Hokage's office. Tsunade sat behind her desk, elbows resting on the wood, sharp eyes fixed on him like a scalpel, waiting for a reason to cut. To her left and right, the village elders watched in silence, faces carved from suspicion and history. Kakashi leaned against the wall, arms crossed, Sharingan covered now, but his attention never left Ichigo. Naruto stood closest to him, too close by council standards. So, Tsunade said at last, breaking the silence, you're telling me you fell into our world from somewhere else. Ichigo scratched the back of his head, already regretting how this was going. Yeah, not on purpose, he said. 1 second I was fighting. Next second, here. That's not an explanation, Homura snapped. That's a story. Ichigo frowned. That's all I've got. The elders exchanged looks. No chakra system. No village records. No summoning contract. No bloodline traits we recognize, Koharu listed. And yet, he fights a Jonin head-on. Barely, Ichigo muttered. Naruto turned on them instantly. He saved a kid. He could have run, but he didn't. That doesn't make him safe, Koharu replied coldly. It makes him unpredictable. Ichigo shifted his weight. Unpredictable. Weapon. Monster. The words followed him like shadows in this world. Tsunade raised a hand, silencing the room. Enough. Her gaze returned to Ichigo. You said you protect people. From what? Ichigo hesitated. How did you explain hollows to people who weaponized children? From things that shouldn't exist, he said carefully. From stuff that eats souls. The elders stiffened. Souls? Homura repeated. There it is. Fantasy. Naruto frowned. Hey, we've got ghosts too. Kind of. Kakashi finally spoke. He's not lying. Every eye snapped to him. Kakashi's voice was calm, analytical. When he fights, the environment reacts. Not chakra-wise, structurally. Like gravity gets heavier around him. That's not a trick. Tsunade narrowed her eyes. And your conclusion? He's foreign, Kakashi said. In every sense, but not deceptive. The room went quiet again. Then Koharu spoke the word no one wanted to say. Containment. Naruto spun around. What? Until we understand him, she continued, unbothered. He should not be allowed to roam freely. Too many villages would pay dearly for a power like his. Ichigo's jaw tightened. So this was it. A cage with polite language. Tsunade's fist slammed into the desk, cracking it down the middle. No. The elders flinched. He hasn't attacked the village, Tsunade growled. He hasn't made demands, and he hasn't lied about not belonging here. Homura shot back. That makes him a liability. Naruto stepped forward, fists clenched. You're talking about him like he's a bomb. Ichigo glanced down at Naruto, surprised. Naruto met his eyes, unflinching. He's not a weapon. He's a person. Silence fell again, but this time it was heavier. Tsunade leaned back, exhaling slowly. Here's the truth, she said. Whether we contain you or not, word will spread. Other villages will sense what you are, or rather, what you aren't. Ichigo nodded slowly. He'd felt it already, eyes turning, attention shifting. In this world, Tsunade continued, power without allegiance invites war. Ichigo looked up. I don't want your wars. Homura scoffed. That's not your choice. That hit harder than any blow. Ichigo finally understood. Neutrality wasn't peace here. It was provocation. Naruto opened his mouth to argue again, but Tsunade raised a hand. For now, she said, you stay in Konoha, not as a prisoner, not as a shinobi. Her eyes locked onto Ichigo's. But as a guest under watch. Ichigo exhaled slowly. A leash, even if it was silk. I can live with that, he said. But as he turned toward the window, looking out over the village roofs, a chill ran through him. Because somewhere beyond the borders of Konoha, other powers were already asking the same question. If Ichigo Kurosaki belonged to no village, then who would claim him first? Sasuke Uchiha didn't come with backup. He didn't announce himself. He simply appeared, standing at the edge of the training field long after the village had gone quiet. Moonlight cutting sharp lines across the ground. Ichigo sensed him a second too late. Not chakra, intent. You move like you're hiding from the world, Sasuke said, voice calm, detached. Not from people. Ichigo turned, hand resting casually near Zangetsu. You stalking me now? Sasuke's Sharingan spun open. The world shifted. Colors dulled. Motion sharpened. Chakra lines ignited across the field like veins of light. Trees, insects, distant shinobi. And then Sasuke's vision stuttered. Ichigo wasn't empty. But he wasn't full either. Around him, chakra didn't flow. It bent. Curved inward, like gravity collapsing toward a center Sasuke couldn't map. No tenketsu, no network, just pressure, layered so deep it felt like staring into a storm cloud with no lightning. Sasuke's breath caught. "You're wrong," he muttered. Ichigo frowned. "What?" "You're not hiding power," Sasuke said slowly. "You're containing it." Ichigo said nothing. Sasuke stepped closer, eyes never leaving him. "What happens if you stop?" For a moment, Ichigo considered lying. Then he saw it. In Sasuke's eyes. Not curiosity, not fear, recognition. "Something bad," Ichigo replied. The air between them tightened. Sasuke nodded once, as if confirming something he already suspected. "I know that feeling." Ichigo studied him more closely now. The tension in his posture, the restraint wound too tight around his spine. "You've got something inside you too," Ichigo said. "Don't you?" Sasuke's expression hardened instantly. "Don't pretend you understand." "I don't pretend," Ichigo shot back. "I live with it." The Sharingan flared brighter. For an instant, just an instant, Ichigo felt it. Cold, sharp, bottomless. Hatred sharpened into purpose. This kid's monster isn't trying to protect anyone. And Sasuke felt it too. The pressure inside Ichigo shifted, not outward, not aggressive, but layered, like doors behind doors behind doors. Something ancient scraped against the edge of awareness. Sasuke staggered half a step, teeth clenching. "What is that?" he demanded, voice low. "Inside you." Ichigo's hand tightened into a fist. "A part of me I don't let decide things." Sasuke laughed quietly. It wasn't amused. "That's the difference between us," he said. "I let mine point me forward." Ichigo's eyes narrowed. "Toward what?" "Power," Sasuke answered without hesitation. "Enough to kill my enemy." There it was. Purpose stripped to bone. Ichigo shook his head slowly. "That's not power. That's being owned." Sasuke's chakra spiked violently. In a blink, he was in front of Ichigo, blade drawn, Sharingan burning. Ichigo reacted instantly, Zangetsu snapping up to block. Steel meeting steel with a sharp ring that echoed across the field. They froze there. Not fighting. Testing. Sasuke pushed, chakra reinforcing his arms. Ichigo held. Raw strength answering without flaring reiatsu. The ground cracked beneath their feet. Sasuke's eyes widened slightly. "You're holding back," he said. Ichigo met his stare. "So are you." They separated, stepping back in unison. Neither looked satisfied. Sasuke sheathed his sword slowly. "You don't belong here," he said. "This world eats people like you." Ichigo exhaled. "Funny. I was thinking the same about you." Sasuke turned away, walking toward the darkness. "If you ever lose control," he said over his shoulder, "I'll be the one who puts you down." Ichigo didn't doubt it. As Sasuke vanished into the village, Ichigo stood alone again, heartbeat steady, jaw tight. Inside him, something stirred. Not anger, interest. And far above the land of fire, unseen by both of them, something ancient and patient turned its gaze. Drawn not by chakra, but by the unmistakable presence of monsters trying very hard to remain human. The first punch nearly knocked Ichigo unconscious. Not because it was powerful, but because it was wrong. Rock Lee's fist slammed into Ichigo's guard with perfect form, chakra neutral, pure taijutsu. Yet the moment of impact sent a violent ripple through Ichigo's body. His reiatsu buckled inward, compressed too fast, like a lung forced to exhale underwater. Ichigo staggered back, boots scraping dirt. Ow, he muttered, blinking hard. Lee stopped instantly. I apologize. That strike was only 30%. Ichigo stared at him. That was 30. Lee beamed. Yes, you are very durable. Ichigo wasn't sure that was a compliment. They stood in Konoha's training grounds under a harsh midday sun. No seals, no jutsu, just bodies, breath, and discipline. Guy-sensei watched from the sidelines with arms crossed, eyes sharp with curiosity. This environment, Guy said thoughtfully, is not compatible with your usual power flow. Ichigo rolled his shoulder, feeling the lingering pressures in his chest. Yeah, I noticed. Chakra was everywhere here. In the ground, in the air, in people. And every time Ichigo moved too fast or pushed too hard, it interfered, scraping against his spiritual energy like sandpaper. Flash steps felt sluggish. Reiatsu refused to expand cleanly. Power, here, demanded structure. Lee dropped into stance again, eyes blazing with focus. Again, Ichigo sighed and mirrored him, looser, instinctive, weight forward. The clash that followed was fast, clean, and brutal. Lee's movements were precise to the millimeter. Ichigo's were reactive, adaptive, driven by combat intuition, sharpened through chaos. They traded blows. Fists met forearms. Kicks skimmed ribs. Ichigo landed a solid strike to Lee's shoulder, only to wince as the feedback rattled his arm. What is that? Ichigo asked between breaths. Lee didn't slow. You are resisting the rules of this world, he said earnestly. Your strength is fighting itself. That hit harder than the punches. Ichigo pushed again, instinct screaming to release reiatsu, to overwhelm, to dominate. But every attempt felt like forcing a square blade into a round sheath. The world pushed back harder each time. Finally, Lee slipped past his guard and swept his legs. Ichigo hit the ground hard, staring up at the sky, chest heaving. Lee offered a hand immediately. You fight like someone who relies on reflex, born from danger. Ichigo took the hand and stood. That's accurate. Lee nodded. But discipline here is survival. Without it, power collapses. Guy stepped forward, smiling, but his voice was serious. In this world, strength is refined through control. You don't just have power, you earn the right to use it. Ichigo looked down at his hands. Back home, he fought because he had to, because power was thrust on him, and people needed protecting. His identity, substitute Soul Reaper, was built around reacting to threats. Here, reaction wasn't enough. Over the following days, the pattern repeated. Ichigo trained until his muscles burned in ways reiatsu had never allowed before. He learned footwork that prioritized balance over speed, breathing techniques that stabilized his core instead of fueling explosions of power. And every lesson came with loss. Each time he suppressed reiatsu deeper, the hollow inside him stirred, uneasy, irritated, not weaker, just ignored. You're cutting yourself off, a voice whispered in the back of his mind. Ichigo clenched his jaw and kept training. One evening, Naruto watched from the sidelines, arms crossed. You look kind of miserable. Ichigo smirked weakly. I am. Naruto frowned. Then why keep doing it? Ichigo considered this question longer than he expected. Because if I don't adapt, he said finally, this world will chew me up. And if I do adapt, he trailed off. Naruto tilted his head. You're scared you'll lose yourself? Ichigo didn't answer, but the silence said enough. That night, alone, Ichigo stood in the quiet training field, sweat cooling on his skin. He drew Zangetsu slowly, feeling the familiar weight of the blade. The pressure answered him faintly, distant, restrained. For the first time since arriving, Ichigo wondered something he never had before. If becoming strong in this world meant abandoning the part of him that made him him, then what would be left when the blade finally fit? The village bells rang, not a call to training, not a signal for normal patrols. Something was wrong. Ichigo sprinted across the rooftops, Zangetsu strapped loosely to his back. Smoke curled from the edge of the academy district. Shouts rose through the narrow streets, panicked, fractured, human voices filled with terror. A hollow. Or at least, that's what the villagers thought. Ichigo landed just outside the source, boots skidding on the tiled roof. A group of rogue shinobi, displaced, rogue from the lands beyond, had cornered civilians. Children were screaming, parents trying desperately to shield them. Time slowed as Ichigo's instincts flared. He didn't think. He acted. Zangetsu in hand, he leapt. The air around him compressed, moving with a force that bent light and dust together. The rogue ninjas didn't see him coming. His swings were precise, brutal, controlled, but he restrained himself, aiming to incapacitate, not kill. Still, the result was chaos. By the time the last of them hit the ground, unconscious or immobilized, Ichigo's breathing had deepened, controlled but steady. The villagers' relief was instantaneous, but it didn't last. A flash of white erupted across his face. The hollow mask. Ichigo had used it for a fraction of a second. A precaution. A measure to enhance reflexes while keeping his reiatsu contained. And it had appeared. Jagged, white, inhuman. Hollow eyes glowed faintly under the moonlight that spilled through broken rooftops. Silence followed. And then, the panic. Shouts erupted as villagers, shinobi, and even passing ANBU agents saw the mask. They fell back instinctively, fingers twitching toward kunai, to jutsu, to anything. Fear swept faster than the wind. One child screamed, pointing. Monster! Ichigo froze, hands raising slightly in surrender. Wait, no! It's... Too late. Tsunade arrived moments later, pounding across the rooftops, eyes wide as she took in the scene. Villagers cowered, and Ichigo's mask had vanished as quickly as it appeared, but the memory lingered in every witness. What happened? She demanded, voice sharp, commanding. Naruto ran up beside her, panting. He saved everyone. They were going to... They were saved. Ichigo interrupted, breathing hard. That's all that matters. Tsunade's gaze hardened, glancing at the frightened faces around them. No, that doesn't matter. Not anymore. Ichigo frowned. What do you mean? Do you understand what the mask looks like? She asked. What it means? Ichigo's jaw tightened. I didn't... You just showed them, Tsunade said, voice low, deliberate. All of them. Soldiers, civilians. Everyone knows you're not one of us. That you're different. Dangerous. Ichigo ran a hand over his face, recalling the flash of the hollow mask. just a reflex, just to react faster. But here, in Konoha, even the briefest display carried consequences. From the ground, Kakashi's calm voice cut through the tension. You've escalated the fear factor exponentially. One mask, one brief moment, and now you're not just a guest under watch. You're a liability. I saved lives, Ichigo said, voice tight with frustration. Yes, Kakashi replied, and yet they will fear you more than those who tried to harm them. Strength here isn't measured by survival. It's measured by trust. Naruto's eyes flashed. They should trust him. He didn't hurt anyone. Tsunede's lips pressed into a thin line. Trust is earned in a world where power destroys first. You cannot simply show power, especially power that defies comprehension. Ichigo exhaled slowly, gaze drifting over the rooftops. He'd thought neutrality would keep him safe. He'd believed that fighting only to protect would shield him from judgment. But this world didn't work that way. Even as he saved lives, he had revealed the part of himself that no one here could accept. The cost of being different, he muttered, almost to himself. From the shadows, unseen eyes observed. ANBU reports had already reached higher-ups, detailing the hollow manifestation. Fear had a name now, and with it, a plan was forming. Tsunade turned toward Ichigo, voice quiet but firm. We'll keep you in the village, for now, but know this. Every second you remain visible, every fight you intervene in, every instinct you act upon, it increases the tension. The whispers are spreading faster than you realize. Ichigo's hands tightened on Zangetsu's hilt. Then I'll have to be faster than fear. But even as he said it, the hairs on the back of his neck stood up, because the mask had drawn attention beyond Konoha. Eyes that didn't belong to any village, eyes that waited for monsters to show themselves, were already moving. And Ichigo realized, with a sinking certainty, that saving lives might have just painted a target on his back. The rain had stopped, leaving Konoha slick and quiet. Ichigo leaned against the railing of the training grounds, Zangetsu resting nearby, its black blade reflecting pale moonlight. His chest was still tight from earlier confrontations, not from physical exhaustion, but from the weight of perception. Naruto approached, boots splashing lightly on wet tiles. His orange jacket clung to him, soaked but undeterred. He didn't ask permission. He didn't hesitate. You're thinking about it, Naruto said bluntly, eyes narrowing. About the mask. Ichigo didn't turn. He had no need to. The orange blur was familiar now, a presence that refused to be ignored. I'm not thinking, Ichigo replied quietly. I'm trying not to. Naruto crossed his arms. You can't hide it forever. I saw it. Ichigo exhaled, shoulders tightening. Yeah, you did, and now everyone else will, eventually. Why do you hide it? Naruto asked, voice gentle but insistent. Why not just let it out? Ichigo's jaw clenched. Because if I do, I don't know if I'll stop. Naruto froze, absorbing the words. The orange-haired ninja had always believed his inner monster, Kurama, was something he could control, something he could use to protect. But Ichigo spoke like the monster wasn't his to command. It existed to exist, raw and untamed. You're scared, Naruto said, stepping closer. Scared it'll take over. Ichigo's eyes finally met his. Deep amber, edged with the faintest gold glint. More than scared. I've seen what it does when I let go. People die. Innocent people. Naruto nodded slowly, understanding. I know that feeling. Ichigo blinked. You do? Naruto lowered his head, voice softening. Kurama, I'm not him, but he's in me. I've had to fight him, control him, keep him from hurting people I care about. It's like carrying a hurricane inside your chest. Ichigo exhaled slowly. Sounds familiar. They stood in silence for a long moment. Two warriors bound by instinct, separated by worlds. Both had monsters inside them. Both feared losing control. Both had relied on strength to survive. Yet now, faced with a new reality, the rules had shifted. I don't know if I can do it here, Ichigo admitted finally. Not like I could before. Chakra, this world, it messes with my balance. My reiatsu reacts differently. Even a fraction of my hollow form. It's unstable. I can't guarantee I won't. He swallowed, the words hanging unfinished. Hurt people. Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. Firm. Warm. Then don't face it alone. Ichigo's eyes flicked to him, skeptical. I've survived alone for years. What makes you think I need someone here? Because I've been where you are, Naruto said. Scared you'll lose yourself. Wondering if the people you protect will end up fearing you instead. I know the loneliness. I know the panic when the monster inside tries to take over. Ichigo's stance softened ever so slightly. And you survived it? Naruto grinned, teeth flashing. Barely. But I had people who believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. That's what makes a difference. Not the monster. Not the power. The people. Ichigo looked away, eyes tracing the village lights below. Each flicker reminded him of the subtle tension he'd already felt. The villagers who feared him, the Hokage who measured his presence like a threat, the ANBU who tracked him in silence. He had no place in this world yet, and every interaction seemed to widen the gulf. I don't know if I can control it, he admitted, voice low, almost a whisper. If I lose it here, people will die. And unlike my world, this one doesn't understand what I am. They won't forgive me. Naruto nodded, placing both hands firmly on Ichigo's shoulders now. Then fight. Not alone, but fight with someone who sees it, who knows what it's like. I won't let you go full hollow without understanding what it means. And neither should anyone else here. Ichigo's fingers curled into fists, knuckles white. You really think someone here could ever accept me? Naruto's gaze was unwavering. I do. But first, you need to accept yourself. Ichigo exhaled, a sharp gust of air that felt like more than relief. It felt like the edge of a battle that wasn't just physical. Inside him, the hollow stirred, restless, testing boundaries. He could feel it pressing at his thoughts, a reminder that he wasn't free, not yet. And somewhere beyond Konoha, beyond even the eyes of the Hokage, unseen presences waited, watching, calculating, drawn by the energy of a monster struggling to remain human. Ichigo turned his gaze to the horizon, jaw set. Then I'll try, he said. Quiet, determined. Naruto smiled. That's all I needed to hear. But even as they stood side by side, the air around them shifted. Subtle, almost imperceptible, an omen of the trials to come. Ichigo had recognized empathy, had glimpsed understanding, but the monster inside him whispered a warning he could not ignore. This world isn't ready for me. And perhaps he realized with cold certainty, he wasn't ready for it either. Night had fallen over the land of fire. The village slept under a veil of moonlight and faint fog, unaware of the currents of power stirring beyond its walls. Ichigo walked alone along the empty streets, Zangetsu slung across his back, thoughts heavy. Each step echoed faintly, carrying the weight of sleepless nights, whispered fears, and villagers who feared what they could not understand. Even Naruto's words lingered in his mind. Accept yourself, fight with someone who sees it. But the tension in the village was a constant reminder that trust was fragile, fleeting. Then the air shifted. A ripple, subtle but undeniable, coursed through the streets and into Ichigo's senses. Reiatsu stirred uneasily at first, instinctively defensive, until he felt it. A presence not just strong, but deliberate, calm, calculating. Pain. Ichigo stopped, hand tightening around Zangetsu's hilt. His instincts screamed caution. This was a figure who had watched, who had assessed, and who had judged. Yet there was no malice in the energy, only gravity, patience, and an almost magnetic inevitability. "You are not bound by this world," Pain's voice had called, disembodied yet resonant, echoing through the narrow alleys. "And yet, you are drawn into its conflicts." Ichigo's gaze darted through shadows. "Show yourself," he demanded, voice steady, though his pulse quickened. A figure stepped from the fog, 6 paths of vision, robes dripping faint moisture into the pale light. Pain's eyes, Nagato's eyes, locked on Ichigo, unblinking, weighing every inch of him. "I have watched you," Pain said. "I have seen how you control the power inside you, how you struggle to protect, yet remain separate. You are remarkable." Ichigo scowled. "Flattery won't get you far. I'm not here for your approval." Pain tilted his head. "Nor do I offer it. I offer understanding, a path." Ichigo's hand twitched. "A path to what?" "To peace," Pain said, voice calm, patient. "A way to walk without fear, without enemies hunting you for what you are, without the village questioning every breath. I can teach you to wield your power fully, to understand it, to use it to end cycles of pain you were never meant to endure." Ichigo felt the words seep into him, unsettling, intoxicating. End cycles of pain. He had always fought for protection, for survival, for fleeting moments of safety. But Pain spoke of purpose, direction, control, something tangible. "You make it sound easy," Ichigo muttered, skeptical. Pain smiled faintly, not cruelly, but with an inevitability that chilled him. "It is not easy, but it is a choice. The world will always fear you if you do nothing. If you fight for them, they may yet fear you. If you join me, you will wield your power in a way they cannot ignore, in a way they cannot challenge." Ichigo felt the familiar stir of hollow energy beneath his skin, as though Zangetsu and the mask inside him were listening to Pain's words, intrigued. "I don't want to dominate anyone," Ichigo said, voice low, almost pleading. "I don't want to be feared. I just want to protect." Pain took a step closer. The fog seemed to bend around him, every shadow sharper, every corner darker. "Protection requires sacrifice. Sacrifice requires understanding. And understanding requires seeing the truth." Ichigo's fists clenched. "And what truth is that?" "That you are alone," Pain said simply. "Alone in a world that will never accept you as you are. Alone even among those who claim to understand you. Alone until you claim your own path." Ichigo's heart pounded. For the first time since arriving, doubt crept in. Not about his strength, not about the mask, but about the people he had tried to protect. About the village that feared him. About the boy in orange who believed in him. About Tsunade, who measured him with wary eyes. And Pain's presence promised something irresistible. A way to step beyond that fear. Beyond expectation. Beyond control. A way home. Ichigo's voice was barely audible. And if I follow you, what becomes of the people I care about? Pain's eyes, infinite and unreadable, met his. They will understand, eventually, or they will witness power they cannot stop, and the world will change, because you have chosen to change it. Ichigo exhaled sharply, feeling the hollow stir again beneath his skin. A power I can't contain here. A path no one else can walk. He looked toward Konoha, distant lights twinkling faintly in the fog, reminders of loyalty, of compassion, of the fragile connections he had formed. Then he looked back at Pain, calm, patient, powerful. A man who offered understanding instead of suspicion, control instead of fear, and a way out. Ichigo's hands hovered over Zangetsu. His jaw tightened. His mind raced. And in that moment, the temptation was clear. To leave. To walk away from everyone. To step into a power that promised mastery of the monster inside him. Away from judgment. Away from fear. Away from compromise. But as his eyes lingered on the faint glow of Konoha in the distance, a question burned in his mind. One that no reiatsu, no instinct, no hollow voice could answer. If I take this path, will I still be Ichigo Kurosaki? And far away, in the shadows of the world, a storm stirred, silent, patient, waiting for the answer. The border village was quiet when Ichigo arrived. Too quiet. Smoke curled lazily into the sky, black against the early dawn, carrying with it the acrid scent of burning wood and fear. Ichigo's boots struck the dirt streets with a hollow thud, each step carrying the weight of a world that had no patience for hesitation. Civilians ran blindly, stumbling over debris. Buildings smoldered, rooftops shattered. The stench of blood and ash clung to the air. Ichigo's reiatsu flared instinctively, a shield against the chaos, but the energy pressed back at him. Chakra, foreign, pervasive, unpredictable, made his movements awkward. He was strong, yet here in this world, even raw power felt constricted. He saw them then. Akatsuki operatives, calm and composed amid devastation, walking through the chaos like predators through prey, Pain's agents. And they weren't there to negotiate. They were there to test, to provoke, to measure him. Ichigo's hand went to Zangetsu. He leapt forward, moving faster than the eye could follow, slicing through shadows and steel. Every swing was precise. Every strike was measured. But even as he incapacitated one operative after another village resident fell. Another building collapsed. Another scream tore through the morning air. He landed on cracked stone, chest heaving. A child lay pinned under debris, eyes wide with terror. Ichigo didn't hesitate. He lifted the ruins effortlessly, but the sound of destruction didn't stop. Somewhere beyond his sight, more screams, more fire, more death he couldn't prevent. Ichigo's instincts screamed, pushing him to the edge, but every action had consequences. Each enemy he felled was replaced by another. Every civilian he saved was countered by another tragedy. The Akatsuki weren't just strong, they were methodical. And their attacks weren't about raw force. They were designed to expose weakness, to reveal limits. And Ichigo felt his limits for the first time. This isn't the same as fighting hollows, he muttered under his breath, voice tight. Back home, I could sweep through them. Protect everyone. End the threat. But here, swords and speed weren't enough. Systems, villages, patrols, politics, hidden agendas moved faster than one man's blade. Strategy outpaced instinct. Fear outpaced protection. Pain's philosophy echoed faintly in his mind, and Ichigo hated it for the clarity it gave him. Power doesn't fix everything, he whispered. It only cuts. It only bleeds. A kunai streaked toward a group of fleeing civilians. Ichigo reacted instantly, intercepting it with a swing of Zangetsu. The blade sliced through the steel midair, but not before someone else screamed behind him. A building collapsed on a mother and her child, leaving Ichigo powerless to stop it. His knees hit the ground hard, chest heaving with frustration and guilt. He rose again, movements sharp, faster, but his heart weighed heavier. Each life saved felt hollow in the echo of those lost. Each swing of his blade reminded him that strength, even immeasurable strength, could not stop systems, only swords. Naruto arrived moments later, skidding to a halt beside him, face streaked with soot and sweat. Ichigo, don't let them... I can't stop everything, Ichigo said, voice strained. Not here, not in a world built to fight itself. Naruto's jaw tightened. Then we adapt. We fight differently. Together. Ichigo shook his head. Sometimes together isn't enough. The Akatsuki operatives retreated as quickly as they had struck, leaving behind the ruin of a village and the impression of power beyond comprehension. Ichigo's mask flickered faintly across his consciousness. A whisper from inside him, angry, restless, hungry. He had controlled it before, but in this world, control wasn't enough. He stared at the horizon where the smoke still rose, feeling a cold, unfamiliar weight settle in his chest. Protection had become war. Saving lives had become collateral, and the realization burned sharper than any blade. No amount of strength would allow him to protect everyone. Ichigo exhaled slowly, gripping Zangetsu tightly, eyes narrowing. Then I have to do something else, he muttered. I have to be more than power. But before he could move, a shadow detached itself from the smoke. Calm, observing, measuring. The figure stepped into the morning light. 6 eyes, unblinking. Calm authority radiating. Pain. And Ichigo knew, with a sinking certainty, that the lesson had only just begun. Power alone cannot stop the world. But what happens when the world decides to stop you? The forest outside Konoha trembled under the tension long before the first blow landed. Ichigo's footsteps were soft, careful, but his presence was a storm. Reiatsu flared faintly, restrained yet insistent, as if warning the world that it could erupt at any moment. Sasuke emerged from the shadows, Sharingan eyes glinting with calculated fury. He had watched, waited, and measured every movement Ichigo had made since the border village incident. And now, he could not contain it any longer. You think you can come into our world, Sasuke said, voice low, sharp, slicing through the still air, and protect people without consequences? Ichigo's jaw tightened. I don't want to fight you. I don't want more blood on my hands. Sasuke's lips curved into a bitter, almost imperceptible smile. You already have, and you will again, if you think you can control the chaos around you without paying for it. Without another word, Sasuke lunged. Lightning crackled around him, a blur of speed and intent. Ichigo barely had time to draw Zangetsu, the black blade materializing mid-air as he pivoted to meet the onslaught. Clash, sparks. Energy that was neither purely chakra nor purely reiatsu collided, shaking the forest and splitting the air with raw force. Trees groaned, leaves shredded, earth cracked under the sheer intensity of their movements. They fought closer than distance could measure. Every strike carried intention. Sasuke's cold precision and Ichigo's instinctive reflexes merging in a deadly dance. "You hide behind your ideals," Sasuke shouted mid-swing, sharing and spinning, predicting and analyzing. "You think you can protect everyone, and yet you're a walking weapon without loyalty." Ichigo countered, blades slicing through a jagged boulder as though it were paper. "And you? You've spent your life chasing revenge. How many people have you hurt in the name of what you believe is right?" The fight paused only for moments, a brief, breathless heartbeat before Sasuke's Chidori lit the canopy like a thunderbolt. Ichigo deflected, but the force sent him skidding back across uneven ground, boots tearing up the soil. He could feel the hollow stir beneath his mask, restless, tasting the aggression, pushing to break free. "You could lose yourself here," Sasuke said, eyes narrowing. "Lose control like that. And what would happen? What would happen if you stopped caring about saving anyone?" Ichigo's chest tightened. The thought was not hypothetical. He had glimpsed it already. Power unbound. Killing not because it wanted to, but because it existed. His mask had shown him what he could become. I don't know," Ichigo admitted, voice ragged, gripping Zangetsu with both hands. "I've always fought to protect. But maybe if I stop." Sasuke's eyes widened slightly, the first crack in his calculated demeanor. He could see it, just as he could see his own monsters mirrored in Ichigo's form. The hollow was not just a tool. It was instinct, rage, and raw survival. Something human yet not. A force that required respect. Chidori sparked again. Ichigo responded with a swing, their energies clashing in a flash that lit the forest like day. Every strike was more than physical. It was ideology, emotion, will. Sasuke's anger, his pursuit of vengeance, collided with Ichigo's fear, restraint, and the constant gnawing question: who would he become if he let go? For a brief instant, Ichigo allowed the hollow to stir, letting the mask shimmer faintly, just enough to heighten reflexes, not dominate. Sasuke halted, sensing the edge of something dangerous, alien yet familiar. "You're holding back," Sasuke said, voice lower, tense. "But I can see it. The monster waiting inside you. You could destroy everything if you stop caring." Ichigo's fingers tightened around the hilt. The wind shifted, carrying the echoes of the border village, the screams he couldn't prevent, the fear of Konoha's citizens who had already begun to whisper. His own mask pulsed faintly against his will, whispering, testing, hungry. "I don't want to become that," Ichigo said, voice low but firm, determination battling the unease in his chest. "But I also can't just stand aside anymore." Sasuke's eyes narrowed further, crimson glow deepening. "Then show me. Show me what you are. Because I need to know if your ideals are real. Or if they're just another mask, hiding what you refuse to admit." The forest seemed to hold its breath as the two warriors faced each other, energy crackling like a storm on the horizon. Every step, Every movement, every heartbeat carried weight beyond flesh and bone. It was the weight of ideology, experience, and the question both feared: what happens when monsters meet? And Ichigo understood in the core of his being what he might lose if he faltered. Not just lives, not just trust, but himself. The first real swing came, a strike not aimed to kill, but to test. And the world around them shook as the collision of monsters began. Who would break first? The one seeking protection, or the one seeking vengeance? The summit hall was silent, heavy with the weight of authority and history. 5 chairs dominated the raised dais, occupied by the leaders of the ninja world, the 5 Kage. Their eyes, sharp and unyielding, fixed not on each other, but on the figure standing in the center of the chamber, Ichigo Kurosaki. Ichigo felt the air shift around him, thick with scrutiny. Reiatsu burned faintly beneath his skin, a subtle pulse he could not fully suppress, yet he resisted. This was not a battlefield of instincts. It was a battlefield of words, of judgment, of political currents more dangerous than any jutsu. Explain again, Tsunade began, voice cold and measured, why this anomaly exists in our world, why he has not been contained, and why he has not been neutralized. Ichigo swallowed, glancing at Naruto, who stood firmly beside him, arms crossed, jaw set, eyes bright with conviction. I don't belong here, Ichigo said, voice steady but low. I'm not a shinobi. I don't answer to villages. I only fight to protect people when I can. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Mei Terumi's eyes flickered with suspicion. And yet, she said, you display power that rivals our strongest. You wield energy that is not chakra, cannot be measured, and is frightening. Do you realize the precedent this sets? It's not about precedent, Ichigo said sharply. It's about stopping harm. That's all I do. Killer Bee leaned forward, arms crossed. All you do? You could end an entire village if you lost control. You exist in our world like a storm that can't be predicted. Some of us would call that a threat. Pain's voice, calm and omnipresent from shadowed observers, lingered in Ichigo's memory. Alone. Alone in a world that fears you. Ichigo could feel it now. Tangible. The Kage were not debating him as a person. They were debating him as a weapon. Rai from Iwagakure spoke next, voice sharp and pragmatic. Power without allegiance is power without accountability. We cannot allow such an entity to roam freely. And yet, Naruto interrupted, stepping forward, chest rising with emotion. He's not a weapon. He doesn't belong to a village, but he's proven that he protects lives. Every time. You want to judge him for what he is, not what he's done. The hall erupted with tension. The debate fractured, voices overlapping. Some Kage advocated for immediate containment. Others urged cautious observation. Tsunade's gaze snapped to Naruto. And you, she said, tone almost incredulous, are defending him. Publicly. Naruto's posture did not waver. Yes, he said firmly, because I trust him. Because he's done more to protect people than most of us could imagine. And because I believe he deserves a chance to exist in this world without being feared into nothingness. Ichigo watched him, chest tightening. He had never seen this side of Naruto before, the willingness to risk political consequences, the courage to stand alone against a system. And suddenly, The abstract notion of loyalty became real. Naruto was risking everything for him. Do you understand what this means? Tsunade asked quietly, almost to herself. By defending him, you challenge not just the five Kage, but the entire structure of trust, authority, and tradition that keeps this world stable. I understand, Naruto replied, voice unwavering, and I'm still willing to do it. Ichigo's chest tightened. He felt the weight of responsibility, not just his own, but Naruto's, pressed into his spine. He was a stranger here, a force without allegiance. Yet he had someone, choosing to place themselves in danger for him. A hush fell over the chamber as each Kage digested Naruto's words. Meiterumi's lips pressed into a thin line. Gaara's eyes were unreadable, weighing consequences silently. The debate had not ended. It had only deepened, but the tide had shifted, if only slightly. Ichigo exhaled slowly, running a hand along Zangetsu's hilt. He had survived hollows, threats beyond comprehension, and even worlds that rejected him. But nothing felt heavier than witnessing someone willing to stake everything for him. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting, watching, as the five Kage's deliberation continued. But Ichigo's mind drifted elsewhere, toward the borders, where Akatsuki lingered, patient and calculating, and where shadows moved with intent beyond even the Kage's sight. Ichigo realized then that trust was fragile, even rare, that being defended publicly could mark you as a target just as easily as it could mark you as an ally. And the lesson cut deep. In a world of power and politics, neutrality was no longer an option. He looked at Naruto, eyes meeting with unspoken acknowledgement. He's risking everything for me. And behind him, beyond the walls of Konoha, distant footsteps carried on the wind. Silent, calculating, waiting for the moment when the world would choose sides, and when Ichigo would have to face the consequences of being defended. Who will truly stand with him when the next storm comes? The air over the battlefield was thick with smoke, chakra, and the unmistakable scent of death. Ichigo stepped onto the scarred plains, Zangetsu slung across his back, and for the first time since arriving in this world, he felt small. The fourth great ninja war had ignited in full force. The ground trembled beneath the march of shinobi, the clash of weapons, the thunderous impact of jutsu that carved craters into the earth. Every direction held movement, energy, and chaos beyond anything Ichigo had faced before. This was not a hollow invasion. This was not a hollow fight. This was war. He watched a platoon of reanimated legends clash with the allied shinobi forces, bodies and chakra flaring in a deadly choreography. Faces he recognized from history, heroes and villains, long dead, moved with terrifying precision, each strike echoing through the chaos. The sheer scale was overwhelming. Ichigo exhaled slowly, gripping Zangetsu. This is insane, he muttered. Reiatsu hummed, thrumming against the foreign flow of chakra, making every movement feel heavier, less intuitive. He was fast. He was strong. But the battlefield demanded more than instinct. It demanded endurance, strategy, and the kind of awareness that could read dozens of threats at once. Naruto appeared beside him, breathless, but determined, eyes scanning the chaos. Ichigo, over here, don't let them break the line. Ichigo nodded, moving to intercept a wave of reanimated shinobi charging a cluster of young ninja. His swings were precise, every movement calculated, yet exhaustion gnawed at him in a way it never had before. Reiatsu was a tide, not an infinite resource, and chakra flowed through the air like currents that pulled and pushed against him. Every strike drained him, not just physically, but spiritually. One opponent, a reanimated might guy in his prime, charged with unparalleled speed. Ichigo dodged instinctively, countered with Zangetsu, and felt the collision rattle his bones. Sparks of energy erupted, yet even as he struck, he realized that while he could neutralize a single enemy, waves of them kept coming. Strategy and stamina were foreign here. Naruto's voice called again. "You can't fight them all. Work with us." Ichigo's chest tightened. "I'm trying," he said, though he knew it was a lie. He was reacting, not planning. He was surviving, not leading. And for the first time in years, he wondered if surviving was enough. He slashed through a group of reanimated ANBU, feeling the familiar thrill of combat. Yet even as bodies fell, more surged forward. Reiatsu burned hotter, the hollow within whispering, testing, urging him to release more power. Ichigo resisted, knowing that a full transformation could devastate allies as easily as enemies. He was not yet willing to lose control. A wave of despair hit him as he realized the truth. No matter how fast, no matter how strong, he could not save everyone. The war was too vast, the system too cruel, and he was a stranger here, fighting in a story that had no room for him, yet demanded his presence. A massive explosion erupted nearby, sending debris into the air. Ichigo barely leapt aside, landing in a crater and scanning the battlefield. The horizon stretched endlessly with soldiers, reanimations, and jutsu lighting the sky. The cries of the wounded echoed in the chaos, each one a reminder that he could not stop everything. He sank to one knee for a heartbeat, chest heaving. Naruto's presence remained at his side, unwavering. "You belong here," Naruto said, shouting over the din. "You may not see it, but you can make a difference." Ichigo shook his head, voice hoarse. "But I'm not from here. I don't understand the flow of this world. The limits, the rules. I can't keep up. I don't even know if I belong in this fight." Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. "You belong wherever you choose to stand. Right now, that's here. Don't run from it." Ichigo exhaled, feeling the weight of the battlefield press down, not just on him, but on the fragile hope of the allied forces. The hollow stirred again, closer to the surface than ever. Power pressed against restraint, instinct against reason. He could feel himself teetering, the line between protection and destruction thinner than ever. From the horizon, a dark figure appeared, moving through the smoke with deliberate calm. Pain, or someone as calculating and patient as Pain, was observing. The war was not just a battle between shinobi. It was a stage for forces far beyond comprehension. Ichigo gripped Zangetsu tighter, his mind racing. If I can't stop everything, then what am I fighting for? Where do I belong? The battlefield answered not with words, but with the distant echo of a jutsu that could obliterate entire squads in a heartbeat. And in that instant, Ichigo realized a terrifying truth. This war was bigger than any hollow, any threat he had faced. Here, even monsters had limits, and he would soon discover if his limits were enough. In a war that isn't his, can he find a place to fight without losing himself completely? The battlefield had become a blur of motion and light. Chakra clashed with reiatsu. Steel met steel, and Ichigo felt the weight of exhaustion like never before. Every step pulled at him, every swing of Zangetsu, a reminder that his strength, though immense, had limits. He had been fighting continuously for hours, moving from one wave of reanimated shinobi to the next, dodging jutsu that could erase entire squads in seconds. And now, he was beginning to falter. It started small, a tremor in his hands, a stutter in his movement, a whisper from deep inside Zangetsu. The hollow, the mask that had always been a controlled force, a guardian of last resort, stirred, hungry, impatient. "Don't let go," Ichigo muttered to himself, voice low, almost pleading. But the exhaustion, the endless tide of enemies, and the chaos of war were relentless. The mask shifted, dark energy seeping into the air, invisible yet palpable to those who could sense spiritual pressure. A group of reanimated shinobi charged, blades swinging, eyes glowing with hatred. Ichigo met them, movements instinctive, but too slow, too tired. A single strike grazed his shoulder, and he felt something inside him snap. The mask flared. It wasn't a full transformation, not yet, but it was enough. Reiatsu exploded outward, dark and wild, forcing the nearest shinobi to stumble back. Trees snapped, earth cracked, and the air itself seemed to recoil. Allies froze in shock, unsure how to approach. The enemy hesitated only briefly, sensing the change, eager to see what emerged from the storm. Ichigo's vision sharpened and blurred at the same time. Speed surged through him, reflexes beyond human, power that could decimate. But the control that usually guided it wavered. Every swing of Zangetsu was brutal, raw, efficient, but indiscriminate. He cut down enemies and dangerously edges of the battlefield itself, debris flying unpredictably. Naruto's voice pierced through the roar of chaos. "Ichigo, stop! You're losing yourself." Ichigo's head snapped toward him, eyes wild, teeth clenched. I can't, not fast enough." His voice trembled, anger and fear mingling. The mask whispered, dark, insistent, testing the limits of restraint. Naruto ran forward, leaping with chakra-fueled agility, placing himself between Ichigo and a group of fleeing shinobi. He did not attack Ichigo. He did not force him down. Instead, he placed a firm hand on Ichigo's shoulder, locking eyes with him. "You're not alone!" Naruto shouted, voice carrying across the battlefield. "I trust you. Focus on that. On us. Not the fear, not the anger. You can control this." For a heartbeat, Ichigo froze. The mask's whispers hissed, urging him to release fully, to abandon restraint, to become the monster that had saved and terrified him so many times before. Naruto's unwavering gaze anchored him. Not command, not judgment, just trust. And in that trust, Ichigo felt something fragile but powerful. A tether, something to reach for amidst the chaos. He exhaled sharply, forcing the hollow energy back, repressing the surge without destroying it. Reiatsu calmed slightly, dark tendrils curling like smoke around him, contained but restless. The battlefield responded. Allies cautiously advanced, inspired by Ichigo's regained composure. Enemies, who had anticipated a monster breaking free, hesitated, sensing the shift in momentum. The air was charged, still tense, but the immediate danger of a rampage had passed, for now. Ichigo sank to one knee, Zangetsu heavy in his hands. His chest heaved with effort, and the mask retreated, leaving only whispers behind. Naruto crouched beside him, hand still on his shoulder. "You almost lost yourself there," Naruto said quietly, voice steady but filled with weight. "But you didn't. You didn't have to fight it alone." Ichigo's eyes met Naruto's. Gratitude, fear, exhaustion, all mingled in a single, unspoken acknowledgement. If I If I can't trust anyone, I'll destroy everything. But you, he trailed off, realizing the fragile truth. Trust could survive fear, but only if the anchor remained steadfast. Only if Ichigo allowed himself to rely on someone, not to weaken him, but to stabilize the storm inside. The battlefield rumbled again, far on the horizon. Reanimated shinobi regrouped, more powerful forces moved, and the war continued unabated. But Ichigo now knew something vital. His strength alone could not carry him. He would need allies, guidance, and perhaps the courage to accept help, before the hollow inside him demanded control entirely. And even as he rose, ready to rejoin the fray, a shadow detached itself from the dust and smoke. Silent, patient, watching. The war was far from over, and Ichigo's control was far from secure. Could trust really survive in a world that feared monsters? Or was this fragile tether all that stood between salvation and devastation? The sky had darkened unnaturally, clouds swirling with a force that seemed almost alive. On the battlefield's horizon, an enormous presence awaited. Pain's godlike composure fused with a threat far beyond even Konoha's worst nightmares. Energy radiated outward, not in chakra alone, but in something alien, a spiritual weight that pressed on Ichigo's chest with undeniable authority. He stepped forward, Zangetsu heavy in his hands, reiatsu coiling around him like a living thing. This was no longer a fight about protecting a village or defending civilians. This was a confrontation with a god-complex enemy who regarded souls as fuel, lives as disposable sparks to ignite ambition. And for the first time, Ichigo realized the stakes. The outcome of this battle could determine the fate of the entire shinobi world. Pain's eyes glinted with calculated amusement. You are strong, but strength alone cannot comprehend the hierarchy of existence, he said, voice echoing like rolling thunder. Souls are energy. Power is currency. And you are merely a fleeting anomaly. Ichigo's jaw tightened. He did not answer verbally. Words could not convey his resolve here. Instead, he exhaled, channeling reiatsu into Zangetsu. The air vibrated around him as the blade began to hum with raw, dark energy, slicing through space itself with the anticipation of inevitability. He charged. The first clash was devastating. Pain struck with overwhelming force, a combination of chakra rods, gravity manipulation, and attacks that warped the battlefield itself. Ichigo met each strike, blocking and countering, but the impact reverberated through his arms and legs, a reminder that even immense power had limits. He swung Zangetsu, each strike precise, each movement instinctual. Shadows of the hollow stirred inside him, pushing outward, augmenting speed and reflexes. Yet Ichigo maintained the delicate balance. To release fully would annihilate indiscriminately, friend and foe alike. Pain's counterattack came as an explosion of energy that shattered the ground beneath Ichigo's feet, sending him skidding across jagged stone. The battlefield tore itself apart in their struggle. Trees splintered, craters formed, clouds of dust and smoke obscured the sun. Ichigo rose instantly, eyes locking onto the enemy. You could be consumed, Pain said calmly, by fear, by exhaustion, by the very energy you wield. You fight for lives you cannot save, and still you come. Ichigo's lips pressed together. If I falter, this world ends. If I hesitate, everyone dies. The thought weighed heavier than any opponent he had faced. The hollow within him hissed, craving release. I will not allow that, Ichigo whispered. His voice was low, steady, defiant. Another series of strikes, faster than the eye could follow. Zangetsu clashed against chakra-infused gravity, sparks and energy scattering like fractured starlight. Ichigo dodged, countered, pivoted, every motion a dance on the razor's edge of exhaustion and desperation. He was at the apex of his power, reiatsu blazing at full throttle, yet each swing cost him more of himself, more of the control he had so carefully maintained. Pain's gaze shifted, eyes narrowing. Your restraint is remarkable, but it will break. Every shield falters, every spirit bends, and when it does, I will consume the entirety of this world, one soul at a time. Ichigo's chest tightened. He could feel the truth in those words. To survive, to win, would demand sacrifice. Not just physical, but spiritual. He would have to risk everything he had fought to protect. Every tether to humanity and self-control. To end this. He exhaled, teeth gritting, and summoned the full edge of Zangetsu's power. Hollow energy surged to the surface, black and white, chaotic and controlled, a perfect storm of instinct and intellect. The world seemed to hold its breath as he prepared to strike, knowing that this moment could obliterate enemies, allies, and himself alike. Pain raised his hands, chakra rods spinning, ready to defend, to annihilate. The air hummed with anticipation, a fragile silence before the storm. Ichigo's eyes narrowed. Survive or end the war. And then he stepped forward, blade poised, heartbeat synchronized with the pulse of the world, knowing that the choice he made in the next instant would decide everything. Would his humanity survive the price of victory? Or would the world demand more than even a soul like his could give? The battlefield lay quiet. Smoke curled in gentle spirals from the shattered earth, the scent of blood and chakra still lingering in the air. Silence pressed down, heavy yet fragile, a temporary lull after the storm of war. Ichigo Kurosaki stood among the ruins, Zangetsu sheathed at his back, reiatsu simmering softly, no longer roaring. The war had ended. Madara's vision, the relentless push of reanimated armies, the endless surge of destruction, had all ceased. And yet, the cost was evident in the shattered villages, the fallen heroes, the empty spaces where once vibrant lives had flourished. Ichigo felt it all, a weight he had never anticipated, a sorrow unlike any he had carried before. Naruto approached first, steps careful, eyes scanning the horizon for lingering threats. His orange jacket was torn, dust-streaked, but his expression held the same fierce determination Ichigo had come to recognize. "It's over, for now," Naruto said softly, his voice carrying both relief and the unspoken fear that peace could fracture at any moment. Ichigo nodded, shoulders sagging. "It's quiet," he murmured. Not the calm he had known in Karakura town, not the silence that followed a hollow battle, but a quiet that carried echoes of every life lost and every choice made. He could feel their spirits, faintly, like whispers in the wind. Reiatsu and Chakra, two forces that had always been separate in his mind, now intertwined in ways he had never understood. Sasuke joined them, silent as a shadow, eyes reflecting the battlefield's scars. His Sharingan had not faltered once, observing, analyzing, judging. Yet even he seemed touched by the odd clarity that Ichigo's presence brought. "You changed something," Sasuke said quietly, voice almost unsure. "Not just the battlefield. The rules, energy, death, even the cycle of combat itself. You exist outside our laws, and the world noticed. Ichigo looked at him, exhaustion and curiosity mingling in his gaze. I didn't mean to. I just did what I had to. Naruto smiled faintly, though the edges of his face carried grief. That's what makes you. You. But the world won't forget, Ichigo. People will talk. Scholars, shinobi, even civilians. Everyone will see that power, life, and spirit can exist differently. They'll try to understand it, or fear it. Ichigo's gaze drifted toward the horizon, where smoke rose in thin wisps from the distant battlefield. He could feel the lingering essence of the fallen, shinobi who had fought valiantly, spirits that were neither fully bound to life nor completely severed from it. Zangetsu hummed faintly at his side, as if acknowledging that the very nature of death had shifted in this world. I wonder, Ichigo said softly, if it will ever be the same. Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder, steadying, grounding. Maybe not, but that's not always bad. Sometimes, the world needs change to survive. Sasuke's gaze hardened, scanning the distant village ruins. And sometimes, he said, change comes with consequences we can't yet see. People will fear what they don't understand. Some will respect it. Some will try to destroy it. You're not just a hero here, Ichigo. You're a question that no one can answer easily. Ichigo's chest tightened. He had fought monsters, faced worlds that rejected him, confronted the hollow within, and stood against forces that saw souls as nothing more than fuel. And now, he was in a world that had survived because of him. But that same world would never truly be the same. The sun began to set, painting the sky in streaks of crimson and gold. Naruto and Sasuke stood beside him, allies forged in battle, comrades in a war that had never truly been his own. Ichigo felt both belonging and alienation, a paradox he had learned to live with. A soft breeze carried the distant sounds of rebuilding, the hammer of reconstruction, the murmur of voices, the faint chakra signatures of those returning to the villages. Life persisted, yet in the back of his mind, a shadow lingered, the knowledge that peace was temporary, that forces beyond comprehension still waited, patient, silent, watching for a chance to unbalance the fragile calm. Ichigo exhaled, resting a hand on Zangetsu's hilt. I can't stay forever, he said quietly. I don't belong here. Not really, but for now I can try. Naruto smiled, though a flicker of worry crossed his features. And we'll stand with you, even if the world doesn't understand. Ichigo glanced at Sasuke, who merely nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the same uneasy truth. They were allies, yes, but the path ahead was uncertain. The war had ended, but the echoes of it, the questions, the fear, the fragile hope, would linger. The wind shifted, carrying a faint, almost imperceptible trace of danger. Somewhere beyond the mountains, shadows moved, waiting, calculating. The world was forever changed by Ichigo's presence, and yet it was still a world filled with questions, challenges, and the possibility of another storm. Peace had arrived, but how long would it last? And who, or what, would challenge it next? The battlefield was quiet now, the echoes of war fading like smoke carried off by the wind. Villages were being rebuilt, shinobi tending to the wounded, and yet Ichigo stood apart, on a hill overlooking the horizon. Zangetsu rested against his shoulder, silent and patient, as if waiting for him to decide. A subtle ripple of spiritual energy shimmered before him. A portal, faint but undeniable, had opened, an opportunity to return to Karakura town, to the life he had left behind. But looking at the villages, the faces of the people who had survived because of him, Ichigo felt a tension deep in his chest. He had become part of this world, its struggle, its hope, and yet he did not truly belong. Naruto approached, the late afternoon sun casting his shadow long across the cracked earth. His eyes were bright, filled with the same relentless determination that had defined him since the beginning, yet softened by a rare vulnerability. "You're really going to leave?" he asked, voice low, almost unsure. Ichigo's gaze did not waver. "I fought. I protected. I changed things here. But this isn't my world. My life, my people, they're back home. I can't stay." Naruto nodded slowly, his hands falling to his sides. "I thought maybe you'd stay, help us rebuild, be one of us." There was no accusation in his voice, only the weight of understanding, of someone who had faced loneliness and responsibility in ways that mirrored Ichigo's own journey. "I can't," Ichigo replied, "not because I don't want to help, but because I have to live my life. I have to protect where I belong. This world, it's changed, and I hope I made it better, but it will survive without me." Sasuke appeared quietly beside Naruto, silent as always, his eyes fixed on Ichigo. "You've left your mark here," he said, voice calm but carrying weight. "Not every warrior can return home and leave the world intact. Few can survive what you've endured." Ichigo exhaled, feeling the exhaustion of months, years of battles weigh on him. Hollow energy pulsed faintly beneath his skin, a reminder of the power he had wielded, the lives he had saved, and the lives he had failed to protect. "I'll carry all of this with me," he admitted. "The victories, the losses, the people who believed in me. It'll stay with me, no matter where I go." Naruto stepped closer, placing a hand on Ichigo's shoulder, steady, grounding. "Some legends don't stay," he said quietly, "but they leave scars and inspiration. You've done that here. You've reminded everyone that strength isn't just power. It's the courage to keep walking, even when you're alone." Ichigo met Naruto's gaze, and for a moment, the weight of countless battles, the hollow, the reanimated armies, the Akatsuki, and the gods of this world, all of it, felt lighter. Not gone, but acknowledged. He had a choice now, and it was one he had earned through struggle, restraint, and heart. He nodded. "Then I'll walk my path, alone, if I must." He turned toward the shimmering portal, a soft wind tugging at his coat and hair, carrying with it the distant sounds of life, the laughter of children, the rebuilding efforts of shinobi, the quiet mourning of the fallen. He had been part of it all, even if only temporarily. Naruto stepped back, allowing him space, yet his voice followed, carried by sincerity. "Just don't forget, no matter where you go, you have friends here. And if this world ever needs you again, we'll be waiting." Ichigo's hand rested briefly on Zangetsu's hilt, then tightened. He stepped forward into the portal, the world of shinobi, war, and spirits fading behind him. A final glance over his shoulder showed Naruto and Sasuke standing together, silent guardians, witnesses to the legend that had walked among them. The portal shimmered, then collapsed, leaving the hilltop quiet once more. The wind carried a hint of reiatsu, a lingering reminder of the stranger who had altered history, who had fought beyond rules and limits, and who had returned home, but not without leaving a legacy. And somewhere in the hearts of those who survived, the memory of Ichigo Kurosaki endured. A soul that had walked through war, fear, and despair, touched their lives, and then disappeared. Legends don't stay, but their echoes never fade. The hills stood empty. The wind whispered over the ruins, carrying a question unspoken. Will the world ever be ready for another soul like his?